Welcome to another episode of Code Breakers, the podcast that empowers you to overcome life's challenges and tap into your full potential. I'm Sam, your host. Welcome back. I'm so excited for our first episode of the new year. And in keeping with New Year traditions, I thought it would be fun to do a quick episode on reflection and life visioning. As a complex trauma survivor, and especially because most of my trauma occurred throughout my childhood, I've actually found both of these activities to come pretty naturally to me. I have always been intentional about my vision and my goals. I had such a strong desire from such a young age to pursue and create a better life for myself that I've spent decades at this point practicing the transformational habits I'm going to share with you today to help you do the same. Full disclosure, I am not a New Year's resolution type of person. I think it's a 50-50 or 40-60 split for the percentage of people who do and don't set resolutions. I'm definitely in the category of those who don't. The statistics for the folks who do are pretty sad when it comes to sticking to them. It's something like 10% or less than 10%. And I don't know about you, but I don't need to set myself up for failure. We're not interested in things that are going to make us feel bad about ourselves or our trajectory anymore. Nope. So you're probably like, okay, why the hell are you doing an episode on it then? And it's because this is some of the best data and maybe one of the best times that I can use to highlight some of the common issues that folks face when they're trying to transform their lives. And as a transformation coach, I want to equip people like you who are interested in bettering themselves with the skills and knowledge to make life altering changes, to begin living in alignment with your truest self, and to bring the life you truly want into your reality. So, if that sounds good, hang out with me for a few minutes today. And by the end of this episode, you will know how you can set goals that you'll stick to and that will fundamentally change your life. Just real quick, before we dive into that goodness, let's talk about common resolutions and some common pitfalls. First off, the top resolutions seem to be physical or mental health related. Like the top three or four are pretty consistently in this realm, which is fantastic. I love this. Improved finances or career related goals are pretty high on the list as well. And then we see things like making more time for family or hobbies, traveling more, better work life balance. And while I realize this is intended to be a summarized list, if and when you're setting goals for yourself, try to go beyond the surface level goals like lose weight, improve fitness, and instead get really specific. Something like lose 10 pounds by removing X, Y, and Z from my diet and incorporating X, Y, and Z into my daily routine. Do you see the difference? Or improve my fitness by doing yoga once a week, cardio twice a week, and weightlifting 3 times a week. What you really want to do is go deeper to assess what are your goals actually going to require of you and how you show up on a daily basis. Probably some of the most common reasons people don't meet their goals or their resolutions is because they give up too soon. They have unrealistic expectations or they set too many goals. They're trying to change too much at one time and then eventually get hung up on problems that come up or you feel bad the moment you fall off the new habit while never really get going back to it either. And maybe one of the most impactful but least understood reasons for not following through on our goals is because we're lacking the clarity and intrinsic motivation to push forward in the midst of challenges, which is something we'll also hone in on today as well. And then lastly, I also want you to think about this. When was the last time you considered how your mindset and your subconscious beliefs affect your ability to become the version of you that has already met your goals? Just going to pause for a second, let that marinate. And now we can switch gears. Let's jump into the goodness. First and foremost, if you want to change your life, you should start with reflecting. Reflect on where you are today and why, how you got there. Effective reflection requires either a high degree of self awareness, trusted feedback, or really ideally both. But to get the most out of reflecting, you have to be willing to be very honest with yourself. It is so important to take time to reflect before setting goals for a number of reasons. But perhaps most importantly is to ensure that you're setting new goals that are in alignment with your values and your long term vision. And long term can be anything greater than like 6 to 12 months, in my opinion. But you have to have this idea. You have to have an idea of what's important to you and what you're going after before you set too many intentions and start chasing goals and taking actions that are not aligned with your inner being or your true self. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, this alignment helps with intrinsic motivation, meaning setting goals that are aligned with your values and your long term vision sets you up so that you're much more likely to take steps and pursue your goal for the inherent satisfaction that you get out of it rather than any external rewards or consequences. Because the milestones, the small steps needed to achieve your goal, are so closely tied to your inner values and your long term vision, you're better able to tap into the reward pathways in your brain that release dopamine, giving you that feeling of satisfaction, making it easier to want to continue doing that, whatever that activity happens to be. And then if or when you fall off for a few days, your brain and your body are actually going to like be asking for that. It remembers that activity being associated to these feel good chemicals. Okay, so if step one is reflection and you need to be pretty good at this, what does it look like? How do we reflect? I hope this is encouraging. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Just set aside some time in the morning before everyone gets up or in the evening before everyone goes to bed. Whatever you have to do to carve out some quiet time and be able to focus on just this. Pick a time frame you're going to reflect upon the last month, year, couple of years, then start thinking about your achievements, positive outcomes you're grateful for. Take some time to appreciate the way things all came together or didn't, and what you learned about yourself in those moments. Do the same thing with any challenges that came up. What opportunities for growth did they highlight? How can you apply these lessons in the future? Ask yourself these open ended questions like, what key experiences did I have this year? Why do they stand out? How did those experiences make me feel? What would I do differently with the knowledge I have today and why? What have I learned that I want to carry forward, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I highly recommend journaling or even just doing some messy note taking during this process. Do something that allows you to keep record of all these thoughts and insights. They are and will continue to be pretty valuable in your journey, and revisiting them occasionally can help remind you of not only how far you've come, but also why you're chasing these goals in the first place. If you have folks that you're willing to let into this process because you trust their perspectives and their assessment, definitely do that as well. Seek their feedback, reflect on it objectively, meaning you're going to assess how true this is. Are any suggested changes that they made aligned to my values and my authenticity? And how does my behavior or how this person perceives how I'm showing up align with my stated values and the things that I claim to be important to me? What's really great about this question is that what we're getting at here is how far apart are your espoused values, what you say you care about? How far apart are those in comparison to your lived values and how you're actually showing up in the world? And ultimately, the question you should be asking yourself is, what do I need to do to close that gap? Now, I think it's also worth noting that while I'm emphasizing and discussing the topic of reflection through the lens of setting New Year's resolutions, incorporating reflection into your weekly or even daily practice will help you fundamentally approach life in a completely different way. I talk a lot about meditation for a reason, and mindfulness meditation has been one of the most effective tools in my recovery and my own transformation. Practicing mindfulness allows us to almost detach from ourselves and become an independent observer. I'm not talking about unhealthy detachment or dissociation, but rather a keen awareness of the things going on around you, how it makes you feel, why, and with your values and long term vision in mind, what do you want to do with that information? Honestly, going through the reflection exercise I just shared with you is a form of mindfulness meditation. So if you can manage to sit down for 5, 10, 15 minutes and allow yourself to focus solely on the present moment, the chair you're sitting in, the lighting in the room, any background music or noise, the color of the pen you're writing with, little things like that. Drawing attention to these things helps ground you into the present moment, and it allows you to connect more deeply with that true self, that inner voice, that inner guidance. Then, as you think about those questions, just write things down. Just jot down whatever comes to mind. And then, boom, you just meditated and you got in touch with your higher self. Much easier than you thought, right? Remember, reflection is best served as a continuous process. The more you incorporate reflection into your daily life, the more benefits you will gain. By consistently asking yourself thoughtful questions and being open to self discovery, you deepen your understanding of yourself, improving your decision making and becoming better equipped to continually progress toward your goals and make adjustments if needed. Regular reflection is also a powerful method for rewiring your brain. As you reflect, you engage the prefrontal cortex, which is the hub of self awareness, decision making, and goal pursuit. And this enhances these functions and promotes neuroplasticity. So, the brain's ability to form and strengthen new neural connections, right? Those highways of information flow. So, you're essentially creating new pathways of information flow and establishing lasting changes in your thought patterns and behaviors as the brain develops and strengthens those new default patterns based on your reflections. All right, now that you've taken time to intentionally reflect on how the past year, month, or 6 months has gone, whatever works for you, we get to move on to the fun part. This is my favorite part. Well, I can't say that. I love reflecting too, but this is really exciting. Future planning, life visioning, goal setting, whatever you want to call it. This is the part where we talk about how you plan for actually getting from point A to point B. Now, hopefully, from your reflection session, you've gained some clarity on who you are, what you want, and how you're showing up in the world. This boils down to values, priorities, and a dose of reality. You have to know what's important to you, why, and how those elements shape your behavior and your approach to the world. Your values, things like integrity, respect, compassion, community, teamwork, spirituality, personal growth, courage, etc. If you don't know what your values are, you have to make sure to take time to get clear on those before going any further with goal setting or any life visioning process. Our values are very unique. They're usually based on our personal experiences and cultural backgrounds and other personal beliefs, but they are so important to know. It is so important to know what your values are, especially when reflecting and setting goals or intentions, because our values fundamentally shape our identity and influence our decisions and actions. They're much like the foundation of a building. Everything else in your life gets constructed around these, whether you're conscious of them or not. And I think this goes without saying, but you want to make sure your long term vision and your values are aligned. If you're setting goals that are misaligned to your values and you haven't started building a reflective practice into your life, the moment something gets difficult, you're going to be a hell of a lot less likely to dig your heels in and push past the barriers, overcome the obstacles, and move forward stronger, better, and more confident. Instead, you're probably going to throw in the towel, feel bad about yourself, and then wonder why your life isn't turning out the way you wanted or thought it would go. And we're not doing that in 2024. So reflect, get clear on your values and your motivations, and then sit down and start planning out your year. And this is life visioning. And once you have that long-term picture in mind, again, pick a time frame that makes sense for you in your current circumstances. It could be 6 months, 12, 18, 3 to 5 years. It doesn't matter. The point is that it's a vision and timeline you set. So write it down. In X years or months, I will be blank. This is where I want you to insert those big, hairy, audacious goals. This is where I 100% support getting a little delusional. Shoot for the moon. If you miss, at least you'll land among the stars, kind of thing, right? So be bold, be brave, be audacious, because we don't stop there. Next thing we're going to do is write down 1 to 3 specific goals to help you get there. And I want you to remember what I said earlier about how to formulate and outline your goals. Really, you need to take time to assess what your goals actually require of you as a person, from your mindset and how you show up in the world on a daily basis. A couple of common goal setting formats include SMART goals. This one's super common: specific, measurable, achievable. I prefer to substitute actionable here, making sure that it's something I can actually control, and then relevant and time bound. WOOP is another framework: wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. And this is great for anticipating potential complications and preparing a plan in advance to overcome them. I could probably do a whole episode on goal setting techniques, but either of these will be a great place to start. We've covered a lot in a pretty short period of time, so I'm just going to briefly summarize how to establish your life's vision, step into alignment, and make lasting changes that will bring your dreams to reality. Reflect on where you are versus where you want to be. Get clear on your values, envision your ideal life, and then set specific goals to help you get there. While I know that I'm making this sound super easy, and I believe that it is, or it can be with practice, I want to leave you with a few more tips that could come in handy when you're in the thick of your transformation. Now, no surprises here. First and foremost, mindfulness and meditation. Being fully present and integrating mindfulness into the reflection process enhances your awareness of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and experiences, which leads to a profound understanding of oneself, a much deeper understanding of who you are. Positive affirmations. Practice positive affirmations to reinforce positive self perceptions and rewire those limiting, unhelpful subconscious beliefs that inhibit your ability to successfully chase and achieve your goals. Say these affirmations in past tense as if the goal has been achieved or the behavior or characteristic you're trying to embody is already true. And do this in the evening right before bed and/or in the morning as soon as you wake up for maximum benefit. Along those same lines, practice visualization, especially in the life visioning phase. Neuroscientific evidence supports the value of visualization. It demonstrates that practicing this mental imagery actually activates the brain regions that are associated with performing those actions. This also contributes to neuroplasticity, rewiring your brain. And this engages what's called mirror neurons, or these specialized brain cells that fire not only when you're performing an action, but also when you're observing someone else performing that same action. This basically provides a neural simulation of the imagined activity, and your brain doesn't know the difference between real and imagined in this case. So, as a result, visualization has been linked to improved performance, reduced anxiety, enhanced motor learning, and changes in pain perception. So, it's impactful on both cognitive and physical processes. Action planning. After setting specific goals, break down any larger goals into actionable steps and then create a timeline for implementation. This is what becomes your roadmap for turning your vision into reality. It also helps you break down what could be an overwhelming goal into much more manageable steps. Now, this is important, and I almost forgot to mention it earlier. When setting specific goals, the steps needed to get from point A to point B, they should be a happy medium between completely terrifying, this feels wildly unachievable, and like, oh, no problem, I've got this. They should strike a balance between being challenging enough to evoke growth and motivation, but not be so overwhelming that it leads to discouragement. I'll try to find a graphic for this, but in the meantime, or if you're listening to this on a podcast rather than watching it, just imagine a quick graph: quality of performance on the y-axis and stress levels on the x-axis, and then an inverted U, just one line. And this one inverted U really just represents the relationship between stress and performance. Did I just do that right? Stress and performance. And this is called the Yerkes-Dodson law. And it basically says that we function at our best when we experience moderate levels of stress. Being overstimulated leads to reduced performance, and not pushing ourselves hard enough also leads to lower performance because you're bored, you're not engaged. It's pretty fascinating. Understanding this will help you become more aware of A, what your stress levels are, and B, where that puts you on this continuum, which can range from boredom to optimal growth and learning all the way to burnout. And so understanding this will help you understand where the tipping point is for exhaustion, panic, and burnout for you specifically. So, all that to say, break your long term vision into manageable steps that help you stay within this growth and learning zone rather than tipping you over into the distress zone, which is where you'll be tempted to quit. Next, make sure you leave room for making adjustments. I revisit my long term vision and my goals on a monthly basis, just a quick check in at the beginning of every month, and I do basically a condensed version of everything I've shared with you today. So, my main advice here is to figure out a routine that works for you, throw it on your calendar so you don't forget, and regularly monitor your progress. Also, celebrate your achievements along the way and be open to making adjustments if you need to. Flexibility and adaptability are crucial for long term success. And this brings up such an important point as well. While you're chasing your goals, do not forget to appreciate the journey, the process, and the present moment. Celebrate the wins, no matter how seemingly small they are in the moment. This is a form of positive reinforcement, which contributes to a positive mindset and motivates continued effort. Again, here you are rewiring your brain. I mentioned this earlier, but I just want to highlight it again. Having social support can be beneficial for many reasons. It helps keep us honest with ourselves, and reflecting on and sharing your vision and your goals with supportive, the key here being supportive, friends, family, or a mentor provides encouragement, accountability, and a sense of community. These folks are also usually pretty helpful in keeping you out of that danger and distress zone that we just talked about. Next, practice self compassion. This is so important. Nobody, except maybe yourself, is expecting perfection. Setbacks and challenges are a natural part of the journey. And I promise you, I promise, every single one of these setbacks is either redirection, keeping you on the most aligned path for your highest good, or it is happening for you, not to you, but for you and for your continued evolution. And that growth mindset comes in handy here. And don't forget to give yourself grace along the way. This is a journey, not an overnight quick fix. If you want sustained change, embrace that fact and start finding joy in the process. Now, I've put together a free worksheet to assist you with this process. I hope that you have found this episode helpful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and then head over to my website and grab that free worksheet that I prepared for this episode. Until next time, remember, you have the power to break your own code and rewrite your story. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time.